Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Prostrations to Ramana, who shines as the self in all beings. Let us start today's satsang by the grace of Bhagavan with the prayer, which will be followed by the chanting of Muktaka trayam by Sri Nandakumarji. We will start with the prayer. Dakshinamurti Sarambha Shankaracharya Madhyamam Ramanacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Vande Guru Paramparam Shuklam Varadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vighnopashantaye Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya Vachikam Sarvavangmayam Aharyam Chandratarari Tam Namah Satvikam Shivam. Namo Ramana.
Ekam Aksharam Hrudi Nirantaram Bhasati Swayam Likyate Katham Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahmamatram Yaham Maham Iti Sakshat Atmarupena Bhati Hrudi Vishamanasa Swam Chinvata Majjata Pavana Chalanarudha Atmanishto Bhavatvam Deham Ranmayavat Jadatmakam Aham Buddharnatasyastyato Naham Tattata Bhava Shukti Samay Siddhatma Sadbhava Koham Bhavayuta Kuto Varadhiya Drishtatmanishtatmana Soham Spurtitaya Arunachala Shiva Vibhati Swayam Soham Spurtitaya Arunachala Shivah Vibhavati Swayam.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Upadesa Saram by Maharshi.
Namo Ramana. Vayurodhanaat niyate mana jalapakshivarodhasadanam chittavayavaschikriyayutat shakayodvayi shaktimulaka laya vinashane ubhayarodhane layagatam punarbhavati nomritam प्राणबन्धनात् लीनमानसम् एकचिन्तनानाशमेत्यद नष्टमानसो उत्कृष्टयोगिना कृत्यमस्ति किं स्वस्तितिं यत दृश्यपारितं चित्तमात्मना चित्वदर्शनं तत्त्वदर्शनं मानसं तु किं मार्गणे कृते नैव मानसं मार्ग आचवात् वृत्तयस्त्वहं वृत्तिमाश्रिताः वृत्तयो मनो विद्यहं मन अहमयं कुतो भवति चिन्वत ऐपतत्यहं निजविचारणम् अहमिनाशभाज्यहमहं तया स्फुरति हृत्स्वयं परमपूर्णस. नमो रमण.
Namo Ramana. We will now have two songs presented from Ramananjali Sangeetam. The first one will be presented by Savitri Krishnan and Jaisriram Krishnan. The second song will be presented by Revathi Shankar.
Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Tathvagadeyamasamanamanekamouni, Vasazitam Kshatiprithat Khalu Lohitasya Ankichatara Bhagavan Ramano Maharshihi Anyeshu Satsu Yadimam Bahushu Sthaleshu Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Chantir Nikantamadika Paramasya Shakti Vairagyamad-bhutatamam karunatu sandra Jnanam girastakudanam madhuram cha vrittam Drirnam nidarsanamayam Ramano Maharshihi Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami, Ramanam Gurum Namami. Bhagavan Ramana Namo, Parameshwaraya Namo, Bhagavan Ramana Namo, Parameshwaraya Namo, Jagamagurave Namo, Shiva Shankaraya Namo, Jagamagurave Namo, Shiva Shankaraya Namo, भगवान् रमणा नमो परमेश्वराय नमो अरुणाचलाय नमो अमलाशिकाय नमो करुणाकराय नमो कलिनाशकाय नमो भगवान् रमणा नमो परमेश्वराय नमो रमणेश्वराय नमो मननाशकाय नमो अमलाधिपाय नमो अभयप्रदाय नमो भगवान् रमणा नमो परमेश्वराय नमो भगवान् रमणा नमो परमेश्वराय नमो परमेश्वराय नमो परमेश्वराय नमो ओम नमो भगवते श्री रमणाय
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Bhagavan is the embodiment of Lord Shiva himself. Many people see him as Arunachala Ramana. He himself has said, I am the source of every heart which is called as Arunachala Ramana. So, who is this? Here the poet describes he is the one who has adorned snakes, the one who gives abhaya, like how Abhaya Pradaya Namavom was sung just now. So he gives us every auspicious thing on this earth. He gives us what is right. He gives us the best things for each individual. So he removes all the weakness in a devotee's life. The weakness of the mind is removed. The mind itself is removed by Bhagavan through the self-enquiry. So here Ramana Dasa Sadananda Sheshagiri Master Sheshagiri Iyer describes him as Pannaga Bharana. And what do we have to do to him? We only have to surrender to him. Sharanu, Sharanu. What does he do then? He gives us his own state and blesses us by removing the ego, which is the obstacle in our life. Present to you a song written by Ramana Dasa Sadananda. The Kannada translation is by R.N. Jayagopal. Music is by Sri H.K. Narayana. Pannagabharana Ramana Sharanu Ramana Sharanu Ramana Sharanu Pannagabharana Ramana Sharanu Ramana Sharanu Ramana Sharanu Pannagabharana Ramana Sharanu ತರುವೆ ಅಭಯ ಒಲವ ಹರಿಸಿ ನಲಿವೆ ಶಿರದೆ ಚರಣ ಇರಿಸಿ ತರುವೆ ಅಭಯ ಒಲವ ಹರಿಸಿ ನಲಿವೆ ಶಿರದೆ ಚರಣ ಇರಿಸಿ ಪನ್ನಗಾಭರಣ ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ಪನ್ನಗಾಭರಣ ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ಇಹನಿ ಪರನಿ ಸುರನಿ ನರನಿ ಜ್ಞಾನಮುತ್ರ ಪ್ರಾಣಮುತ್ರಾಣಮು ಶಿವನಿ ಇಹನಿ ಪರನಿ ಸುರನಿ ನರನಿ ಜ್ಞಾನವು ಪ್ರಾಣವು ತ್ರಾಣವು ಶಿವನಿ ಕೊಡು ಜ್ಞಾನ ನೀ ಹೃದಯದೆ ನೆಲೆಸಿ ಕೊಡು ಜ್ಞಾನ ನೀ ಹೃದಯದೆ ನೆಲೆಸಿ ಮನಸ್ಸನು ಕವಿದ ಇರುಳನು ಹರಿಸಿ ಪನ್ನಗಾಭರಣ ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ಪನ್ನಗಾಭರಣ ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ಮನುಜನ ದುರ್ಬಲ ನೀಗಿಸು ಈಶ ಮೋಹವ ತೊಲಗಿಸು ಹೇ ರಮಣೇಶ ಮನುಜನ ದುರ್ಬಲ ನೀಗಿಸು ಈಶ ಮೋಹವ ತೊಲಗಿಸು ಹೇ ರಮಣೇಶ ಚರಣದಿ ಸ್ಥಳವನು ನೀಡುತ್ತ ಹರಸು ಚರಣದಿ ಸ್ಥಳವನು ನೀಡುತ್ತ ಹರಸು ಗಜ ಚರ್ವಾಂಬರಧರನೆ ಉಮೇಶ ಪನ್ನಗಾಭರಣ ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ಪನ್ನಗಾಭರಣ ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ಹರನೇ ಶಿವನೇ ಗತಿಯೇ ಮತಿಯೇ ನೆಲ ನೀರ್ವಾಯು ಅಗ್ನಿ ಆಕಾಶ ಹರನೇ ಶಿವನೇ ಗತಿಯೇ ಮತಿಯೇ ನೆಲ ನೀರ್ವಾಯು ಅಗ್ನಿ ಆಕಾಶ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ನೀನೇ ಲಯವೂ ನೀನೆ ಸೃಷ್ಟಿ ನೀನೇ ಲಯವೂ ನೀನೆ ದಾರಿ ತೋರಿಸು ನಮಗೆ ಮಹೇಶ ಪನ್ನಗಾಭರಣ ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ಪನ್ನಗಾಭರಣ ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ರಮಣ ಶರಣು ಪನ್ನಗಾಭರಣ ರಮಣ ಶರಣು Namo Ramana. We continue the satsang with a reading and sharing from the book Resplendent Sun, Bhagavan Ramana, Angles of Vision. This will be done by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this, the book reading segment of our satsang, we continue reading from Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, The Resplendent Sun, Angles of Vision, with compilation and contribution too from our founder president, Shri A.R. Natarajanji. We have completed the article contributed by V.S. Chengalvaraya Pillai on Aksharamanamalai. So we are starting with the article contributed by Patrick Libel, who has written a book on Bhagavan in French. Ramana Maharshi as a Vedic seer, Patrick Libel. Ramana Maharshi as a Vedic seer. The why of Ramana's universal appeal. A knowledge of the Vedas and the Vedic path is certainly not a prerequisite for understanding, loving, and practicing everyone in his own way and according to his own abilities Bhagavan's teachings. They are of universal nature and do appeal to every spiritual seeker. Sri Ramana was quite conversant with the subtleties of Hindu thought and put them to good use whenever he spoke to Hindus and also to non-Hindus who had a knowledge of the Hindu Dharma. But he did not need them for expressing deep fundamental truths. He did not need the traditional Vedic teachings to put it in language of understanding to people who had no background in the Vedas. But he did not need them for expressing deep fundamental truths. As a result, a Westerner is quite able to tread the path which he delineated so clearly. Sri Bhagavan's words fulfill the deepest needs both of our intelligence and of our heart. It is, however, a fact that Sri Bhagavan was a Hindu and his own experience as he expounded it was the rediscovery of that ancient Hindu experience. To be sure, these discoveries ring true for any human being, whether Hindu or non-Hindu. It proves nevertheless rewarding to understand how ancient they are and how much their profundity bears the seal of a timeless revelation. Revelations of Vedanta. The Upanishadic rishis meditated upon that one. They discovered within this unitary vision a revelation of the timeless, changeless, non-dual reality as being the innermost truth and ground of the world at large, of gods and of men. I'll read that again. The Upanishadic rishis meditated upon that one. They discovered within this unitary vision a revelation of the timeless, changeless, non-dual reality as being the innermost truth and ground of the world at large, of gods and of men. The reality Brahman was oneself, Atman. The reality Brahman was oneself, Atman. A clear experience of this reality, that is, the Advitiya nature of the Atman and the Brahman, a clear experience of this reality as being oneself and everything else was liberation from the existential bondage. A clear experience of this reality that one as being oneself and everything else was liberation from the existential bondage. Ritual was good, but not essential. Vedic seers had already seen that their speech would be heard in ages to come. This inspired prophecy was to prove to be true. The Upanishadic rishis were no longer speaking for the Vedic people, for India, but for every being in every possible time and space, time and place. If there are Martians, Atman and Brahman is the same for them as for earthlings, just as physical laws are the same. That much is the universality of Vedic and Bhagavan's teachings. If there are Martians, Atman and Brahman is the same for them as for earthlings, just as physical laws are the same. The earliest parts of Mahabharatam were probably shaped during the last Upanishadic period. Rishis often met within the text. Its reputed author, Vyasa, is one of its protagonists and a very high Rishi himself. Several chapters show us that Rishis practiced severe austerities. They conducted the traditional worship since the gods kept their place in the structure of the world. Religion was a natural element of right living. The rishis did mix with men as living examples and as teachers. Their glory was that they studied the Veda. They enjoyed perfect inner peace. Truth was their vow. Meditation was their nature. Rishis used to alleviate the sufferings of every creature by speech and deed. Ramana, Vedic seer of modern times, a seer among seers. The author has taken us through how the Vedic rishis keep appearing and keep looking at the Vedas according to the times in which these rishis are reborn or reappearing, and the trend, the line or direction in which the author is going is that Bhagavan is such a rishi who is now delineating the Vedic path to the modern earthlings in the modern words possible. Ramana, Vedic seer of modern times, a seer among seers. Now, thousands of years later, here comes Ramana. Is he not a member of this subspecies? A proof also that it is not extinct and that mankind is still able to bring forth rishis, great or small, among whom he will loom as one of the greatest. Maharshi, as Ganapati Muni saw it so clearly at the end of the year 1907. Anybody who has studied the Upanishads and possibly their native ground, the Vedas, will agree that the core of what Sri Bhagavan taught is precisely what lies at the heart of these ancient teachings. Supremacy of the knowledge of the self, Atman, need for inner austerity, tapas, but not necessarily for leaving aside one's worldly avocation, self-dedication to the pursuit of liberation, even bhakti. The rishis spoke this kind of language and lived this kind of experience. They expounded it in every ancient book written in archaic Sanskrit, which no translation can adequately render. They used similes and a symbolism which are quite foreign to Western cultures and which only Hindu scholars properly fathom. As a contrast, the voice of Sri Bhagavan arises in our 20th century. He uses an everyday language of India. We can understand at once any image he develops. The value of a study of the Upanishads and the Vedas stays undiminished. It is, however, much easier to sit at the feet of Sri Bhagavan and listen to his words, just as we would have loved to sit at the feet of some great rishi of olden times and listen to his inspired speech. Unique, spontaneous self-awareness of Ramana. While attempting to set up a parallel between Sri Bhagavan and the rishi we meet an interesting problem. Nobody knows whether any rishi did step directly from ordinary manhood to rishihood, just as Sri Bhagavan did. In July 1896, when he leapt over both life and death, recognizing in a flash that he did not differ from the Supreme. Here the author is referring to the enlightenment experience, the first death experience in Madurai. Nobody knows whether any rishi did step directly from ordinary manhood to rishihood, just as Sri Bhagavan did in July 1896, when he leapt over both life and death, recognizing in a flash that he did not differ from the Supreme. The Mahabharatam does not seem to record such a feat. The saintly mother of Sri Ramana had impressed upon him from conception the mysterious seal of high wisdom, which triggered the sudden transfiguration from a gawky teenager to a full-grown saint and sage. May we bow before such an event in awe and wonder. So, though we find the ancient rishis in Bhagavan, we find Bhagavan's enlightenment experience right out in the open for us to follow in self-enquiry. Austerity, tapas in the usual sense, was not the path of Sri Ramana. He lived the simple life of the Hindu ascetic. Austerity tapas is seen by him as an inner attitude of mental dedication. He taught the ultimate tapas is the direct inquiry into the fundamental problem, who am I? He taught that ultimate tapas is the direct inquiry into the fundamental problem, who am I? Mahadidam tapo Ramanavagyam. In the Mahabharata, a rishi does advise to meditate according to who am I. Sri Bhagavan explained that one-pointedness is the tapas wanted. This is both an excellent instruction and an example of the Upanishadic process of getting to the essence of the things. The rishis were devotees. This facet of Sri Ramana does not seem to be very widely known among Westerners. That the rishi is the best of devotees and the best of karma yogis, Bhagavan mentions again and again. The rishi who has identified the Atman with the Brahman, that means who is in the omnipresence of the Supreme, is clearly aware of the omnipresence, the omniscience and omnipotence. So the bhakti to the all-powerful nature of the Supreme is complete. The bhakti of the rishi is a complete bhakti, purna bhakti. The rishis were devotees. This facet of Sri Bhagavan, Sri Ramana, does not seem to be very widely known among Westerners. We know that Sri Bhagavan was in his heart a devotee of Arunachala Shiva. Whenever an incident full of love took place, or whenever passages saturated with bhakti were read, we often saw Bhagavan overwhelmed with emotion. An incident where Kambar, who is accompanied by his king, who as a friend has taken the role of his pawn-bida carrier. The Kambar is placed in the palanquin and the king is taking the pawn-bida, the whatever vessel is there, as an answer to an earlier challenge to another king. Kambar and this king are entering the palace into the hall, and that king offers that spittoon for Kambar to spit. But then Kambar is not able to do that. He gets down and embraces the king, or some such event happens, and while narrating this great friendship, this love where that king has deigned to be a servant, and the love of Kambar not able to enforce that. When Bhagavan is narrating it, he is full of tears in his eyes. He said, whenever incidents of great love took place, or whenever passages saturated with bhakti were read, we often saw Bhagavan overwhelmed with emotion. Ramana, the embodiment of Vedas. Many Vedic themes appear in his talks. They lie at the core of Hindu sensitivity, which itself stems from the Veda. Seeing the one in the many was a great Vedic revelation. When Ramana said, the devotees, God, and the hymns are all the self, the ring of this remark is deeply, authentically Vedic. The same thought, slightly transposed, but through the same Upanishadic process of going to the root matter, was evoked by him by saying, engage yourself in the living present I. So the core of Bhagavan pointing out to that single underlying reality, whenever somebody asks about past, future or objects, Bhagavan would say, engage yourself in the living present I. Bhagavan did not study the Veda nor go through protracted austerities, but he was Veda. Bhagavan did not study the Veda nor go through protracted austerities, but he was Veda. His innate adherence to pure truth and the clearness of his vision set him amongst the great rishis, amongst the eternal glories of India, and the eternal refuge of mankind. I'll read that again. Sri Bhagavan did not study the Veda, nor go through protracted austerities, but he was Veda. His innate adherence to pure truth and the clearness of his vision set him amongst the great rishis, amongst the eternal glories of India and the eternal refuge of mankind. What Sri Ramana wrote is Upanishad. May he enlighten our spirit, prayed an Upanishad in ancient times. Thinking of Sri Bhagavan, let us pray again. May he enlighten our spirit. The Frenchman concludes, may he enlighten our spirit, prayed an Upanishad in ancient times. Thinking of Sri Bhagavan, let us pray again. May he enlighten our spirit. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. I request Nandakumarji to have the self-enquiry session for us.
Namo Ramana. Before we commence the practice of self-enquiry, to listen to Bhagavan's Upadesham, we take a talk randomly from Talks with Sri Maharshi. We are in 14th December 1938. 14th December 1938, talk number 591. Talk number 591. Seekers who are in immediate proximity of the Master can get grace by darshana, sparshana, etc. Look, touch, etc. But how does one get the same grace when the person is at a distance? This is the question from a devotee. Seekers who are in immediate proximity of the Master can get grace by darshana, sparshana, etc., look, touch, etc. But how does one get the same grace when the person is at a distance? Bhagavan, by yoga drishti, yogic look. Mr. Chopra, a Punjabi employed in Singapore, is on a visit here and raised a few questions. So the yogic look of Bhagavan is always present from within each one of us. Bhagavan is always looking at us, and his Nayana Diksha, his Diksha by speech, his Diksha by touch are all available from within. When we turn inward, there are devotees who speak with Bhagavan, who get guidance from him verbally. And his sight is constantly on us. This Purana is constantly on us. This Purana itself can be seen as any of these. Therefore, Bhagavan's yogic touch is always present from within us. When all he asks is, turn inward. Just hold the eye. You will be able to feel Bhagavan's presence right there. Mr. Chopra, a Punjabi employed in Singapore, is on a visit here and raised a few questions. Devotee, what is the efficacy of the name? The Nama. When we do Nama Japa and Dhyana, what is the efficacy of the name? Sri Bhagavan read out the extract from the vision. It was a translation of Namdev's stanzas. Devotee, how does the name help realization? How does the Nama help in realization? Bhagavan, we constantly hold Bhagavan's Nama. Bhagavan nodkoltare. Bhagavan takes care of us. So we will call him either as Bhagavan or as Ramana. But that Nama is there. So Bhagavan explains how that holding of Bhagavan constantly as an undercurrent in all our activities. The original name is always going on spontaneously without any effort on the part of the individual. The original name is always going on. The Akanda Akara Nama is always going on without any effort on the part of the individual. The individual's efforts are only to remove the attachment to the non-self, only to remove the ignorance. It is not to reveal the self. The self is without the effort of the sadhaka, it's always going on. The Nama is going on. The original name is always going on spontaneously. Many times we are told the Vedic seers or the rishis or the realized ones, they act spontaneously. We should understand they are abiding in the self. The spontaneity should not be associated with their worldly actions. They are to be negated as non-existent. And the only spontaneous action is this Purati, this Purana that is going on its own. The original name is always going on spontaneously without any effort on the part of the individual. The name is Aham, I. But when it becomes manifest, it manifests as Ahankara, the ego. The oral repetition of the Nama leads one to the mental repetition, which finally resolves itself into the eternal vibration. So how does the dhyana, how does the Nama, how does the Parayana of so many years? We see a devotee doing Parayana of Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, Ramana Stuti Panchakam, Ulladu Narpadu for years. That is nothing but the Nama Japa. When they have that great blessing of holding the Nama, Bhagavan's Nama, the Arunachala Stuti Panchakam, they are the very breath of Bhagavan. So in our inner journey, when the Jiva is holding only this Stuti Panchakam for 45 minutes, 1 hour in the morning, you regularly hold that. In the evening, you do your own meditation of the Nama. Bhagavan says, slowly it will make the meditation as mental. The mind looking at the mind itself. That means the physical proclivities would have been overcome. The mental vasanas will be dealt with the mental holding. And then the effort will be no more required. Because the ego would have worked out all its vasanas and is now listening to the Akanda Akara Vritti. It is listening, it is feeling the presence of Bhagavan as the spontaneous moving of I. The oral repetition of the Nama, we may be chanting it a bit loudly in the beginning, the Parayana. Very quickly it becomes mental. From there it removes all our proclivities, the fears as to how things are going to get done in the world. We get more and more under the influence of omnipotence of Bhagavan. And as this removal of ignorance that we are the doer keeps on burning away the ego becomes tanumanasi, it becomes weak, it becomes non-effective, and one is able to feel one's original nature as the Akanda Akara Vritti, the vibration. But all these are mental, but these are all mental or physical. The devotee says, but these are all mental or physical. Bhagavan, the mind or mouth cannot act without the self. Tukaram, the great Maharashtra saint, used to remain in Samadhi in the day and sing and dance at night with large crowds of people. He always used to utter the name of Sri Rama. Once, he was answering the calls of nature and also saying Ram Ram. An orthodox priest was shocked at the unholy mention of the sacred name and so reprimanded him and ordered him to be silent. When he answered calls of nature, Tukaram said, "All right," and remained mute. But at once there arose the name of Rama from every pore of Tukaram, and the priest was horrified by that din. He then prayed to Tukaram, "Restrictions are only for the common people and not for saints like you." This Purana becomes so clear because what is false has been erased. The I has now completely consumed. It has enveloped the whole creation. And the creation is replaced by the Spurana. What happens when the I is full of Spurana? It loses its individual nature. It loses its limited nature. It is the Yara. All limitations are gone in the I. So at the very same time, it is smaller than the smallest, it is greater than the greatest. All words like inside, outside are all gone in that Akandakara Spurana. Therefore, there is no question of saying it or not saying it. It is one's very nature. It is going on just like the blood flow, just like the breath, which will stop at one time. This Purana, which will never stop, which is the Satchit, the existence consciousness. It keeps going, and the Rama Bhakta calls it as Rama Rama, the Krishna Bhakta as Krishna Krishna, the Ramana Bhakta, it goes as Ramana, 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 Bhagavan, Bhagavan, Bhagavan. But then it will make you ask, who is chanting? Are you apart from me? Am I apart from you? So there are only these two things, the effortless chanter and the spontaneous Spurana. At that point, the question will arise, who am I who is doing this Spurana? That is where the seer who has come through a path, he has come through Hinduism, he has come through, as the French writer says, he is a Hindu seer. But the moment he identifies with the I, his teachings become available to the world at large. He is a Loka Guru because he doesn't need, with Hindus, he will use the Hindu terminology. He will use Vedic terminology. But he doesn't need that to explain the fundamental truths, says that French writer so truthfully. He is the Loka Mahaguru. He can directly say to somebody who doesn't know Arunachala Shiva, who doesn't know this path, this glorious path to the self, then he can directly say, hold the I. Whenever a thought arises, hold the I. It will take you to self-realization. And that is the path he shows us. Understand how great the Nama is. But go for the final step where Nama will take you to the Atman. And that's what we are going to practice for the next 10 minutes. Holding the I, when other thoughts arise, we are not to pursue them, but to ask, for whom is this thought? Who am I? Those who can directly hold that I without waiting for thoughts to arise. With Bhagavan's immense grace, let us sit in Atmacharam for the next 10 minutes. Revathi ma, you will help us out with the time. Thank you. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Ramanacentre by Sri Ujwal Jagadeesh.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. We have been meditating on the verses of Ramanacentre, which has been composed by Kavya Kanta Vasishta Ganapati Muni, and they have been compiled in this format and given to us as Ramanacentre, the 40 verses in adoration of Ramana by Bhagavan Ramana himself. And in these set of verses that we are meditating, Ganapati Muni talks of that gracious glance of Ramana which is ever available, which gives success and fruit to all the actions. Prasaratadita shubhavilokitam Ramanate sakrit phalatu me kritam Ramana janmina Vaibhavan guru Abhidashaya stavamahanuru Jagadaham para spurati me trayam Sadabidam gira tava visamshayam Tvadupadeshato galati samvida Mainiranyaya sadahamorpida Ahim ahamiyuntara stamamalam hridi Anubhave mabho tava kripayadi Na karuna guna tava vidampate Hridaya tejasa sahaja vaivate Karune gunavalla Ramana ninage odeyane Ramana Hridayadi holayuva Ramana sahaja swarupave Ramana Harisu nannede ninna karune notava Ramanane sukritavu phalava ಗಳಿಸಲಿ Ramanane Guru Sakala Jivaku Abheda Anantavu Ninna Hridayavu Jagajiva Para Muragi Spurisade Ekatmavagide Tava Nudim Nisamshaya Tvadupadeshadi Jnana Aralitu ನನಗು ಸತ್ಯಕ್ಕೂ ಇರುವ ಭೇದ ಅಳಿಯಿತು ಅಹಮಿನ ಮೂಲದ ನಿರ್ಮಲ ಹೃದಯದ ಅನುಭವವಾಗುವುದು ನಿನ್ನ ದಯೆಯಿಂದ ಕರುಣೆ ಗುಣವಲ್ಲ ನಿನಗೆ ರಮಣನೆ ಕರುಣೆ ಗುಣವಲ್ಲ ನಿನಗೆ ಒಡೆಯನೆ ಹೃದಯದಿ ಹೊಳೆಯುವ ಸಹಜ ಸ್ವರೂಪವೇ. Ganapati Muni is telling, O Ramana, for you, Karuna, compassion is not at all a quality. It sounds like as if it is an Inda Stuti, as if he is scolding Ramana. O Ramana, for you, Karuna is not at all a quality. But when we look into the next line, he says, Karuna is not a quality, but it is your own true nature. It is your Sahaja Swarupa. So although it sounds like a Ninda, it changes to Stuti in the second half. This is one kind of poetry that we have in our Indian culture, where we scold the divine, yet there is the Stuti behind it. Because even to scold, we need that God's power which has to be ever available as our Sahaja Swarupa, which makes us to even speak, to makes us to even think. So Ganapati Muni makes us remind of that Sahaja Swarupa that we are, and he describes that Sahaja Swarupa. O Ramana, you are that Atma, the Sahaja Swarupa of every being, and for you, compassion is not a quality, not an attribute, not an addition, but it is your own true nature. We can see that in Ramana's life, Ramana was compassionate to everyone, and his compassion has been described in this beautiful song, which is inspired by this same verse. Sahane Shanti Preeti Ninna Gunagadalla Ramana Ramana Ninna Sahaja Swabhava Ramana. In the second paragraph, the examples that is given is Kachuvavariಗೆ ಸಿಹಿಯ ಕೊಡುವುದು ಹಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ಸಹಜ. For those who bite, the fruit gives sweetness to them. ಅಗೆಯುವವರಿಗೆ ನೀರ ನೀಡುವುದು ಮಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ಸಹಜ. For those who dig the earth gives them water. ಮೈಯನು ಚುಚ್ಚುವ ಧೂಳನು ತಪ್ಪಿ ಮುತ್ತಾಗಿಸುವುದು ಸಿಂಪಿಗೆ ಸಹಜ. An oyster, it is made of a very soft skin, and that soft skin, sometimes a small dust particle, it sits on that soft skinned oyster, and that dust particle is converted into a pearl by the oyster. That is the sahaja swabhava of the oyster, which accepts and it embraces that little small dust particle and it makes it a beautiful pearl. Kallarigu karune toruvudu, kallarigu karune toruvudu ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಸಹಜ, ರಮಣನಿಗೆ ಸಹಜ. ರಮಣ ನಿನಗೆ ಸಹಜ, ರಮಣ ನಿನಗೆ ಸಹಜ, ಸಹಜ ಸ್ವಭಾವ ರಮಣ. For Ramana to show compassion to even robbers is only possible by Ramana, because his very being is compassion. So we can see that his compassion was not only for human beings, not only for these robbers whom he said they are misguided, they do not know what is right and what is wrong, but we know what is right and what is wrong. So we as sadhus, we should not drop our dharma. We should hold on to our dharma. They are misguided. And he gave the example of how sometimes our teeth bites our tongue accidentally. And what do we do? Do we say this, all these teeth are bad, and do we knock them off? No. We find a way of coexisting with the tongue and the teeth, how they coexist as one entity called the body. So the whole society is like a body, and the various individuals are the various limbs of this society, and we all have to learn how to live a life in a harmonious way, just like how this body is. This is what he says in the chapter, the 10th chapter called the society, and that chapter has a very special date when it was discussed. It was discussed on the 15th of August, the day when we got independence, and that too 30 years before we got the independence in 1917, if I'm not wrong. This discussion had happened and Ramana had told this, and such compassion is of Ramana that he accepts everyone. We see that there is an instance where a little girl wanted to pluck the mango, and she was pelting stones on that mango tree, and there was this beehive on that mango tree, and accidentally her stone fell on that beehive, and all the bees were disturbed, and they all came and they all bit her right hand alone, and they all went away. And she came running to Ramana's Tata's hall, his presence, and started crying, Ramana Tata, all these bees have come and bit me, I'm in great pain. And Ramana Tata saw it, and he asked that little girl, what did you do? What were you trying to do when it came to bite you? And she slowly told the story behind it. She told that she wanted to pluck the mangoes and she was not able to reach it. So she was pelting stones to that mango tree, and accidentally it fell on that beehive, and the bees were disturbed, and they all came and they bit her. And Ramana Tata, holding her hand with lot of love, was asking all these questions. What color was those bees? And the girl told, usually the bees are orange and black, but these bees were different in color. They were red and black. And Ramana Tata told, yes, these are the special bees which are on the mango tree, which are red in color and not orange. And he told, okay, so you should not, they would have got hurt, right? If when you pelted the stone, their home would have got disturbed, and they would have got hurt, and they would have got disturbed. That's why they all came and bit you. So you don't do this next time. Telling this to that little girl, he slowly stroked her hand. And as soon as he did that, all the pain vanished. And that little girl wondered, oh Ramana Tata, the pain has gone. The hurt which I had got because of the stinking of these bees, it has just vanished. But why didn't you do this before itself? Why did you have to talk to me about the color of the bees? What did I do? What happened later? And you gave me Upadesa of not hurting the bees. Why did you have to tell all these things before you stroke my hands? And Ramana Tata told, because you disturbed there, then the beehive, they would have felt the pain. So even you should feel that pain, right? So whatever action that we do, we need to undergo the consequences. So the divine wanted you to undergo this experience of the consequence of hurting somebody. So you underwent that small punishment, small consequence, and now it is cured. And that girl was happy and went back home with the resolve that she will not hurt any being. Because all this, Ramana's love to all the creatures, including the tiniest bees, springs from his heart, because that love, that compassion is his own true nature. And it is not an addition, or it is not an attribute that is holding on to. It is his own true nature. And we see that this Karuna is available to everyone who came to the hall. The great freedom fighters who came, Jamunalal Bajaj and Rajendra Prasad, to find answers and find inspiration for their freedom movement. And Ramana blessed their endeavor too, and told that one should work with surrender, and then the success will come at the right time. He blessed them too. Kitty Osmond tells about when she was a little girl, she had been gifted with this beautiful small book of origami. Origami is like paper folding book with all these paper folding. And she was trying one folding which she was not getting for a long time. She had been trying it for 2-3 days, but she had not got the right folding. And with that a little disappointed feeling, she came to the presence of Ramana, to the Ramana hall. And in Ramana hall, everybody would do whatever they wanted to do. Some would meditate, some would sing, some would chant Vedas, some would listen to the radio, and some would read the newspaper, some would read and some would meditate. And everybody were allowed to do whatever they wished to do. That's why that hall, the old hall, was called the Freedom Hall. And this little Kitty Osmond was folding this origami thing which she was not getting from past 2-3 days. But in the presence of Ramana, she got it easily. And she got up and said, "Thank you, Bhagwan." And she left the place. So she says that in the presence of Ramana, the Karuna was so natural, as if it was meant to happen that way. Ramana, when somebody came and reported the miracle that had happened in their lives, Ramana would say that it is all spontaneous divine activity, and there was no any special effort by Bhagavan in making things work. That spontaneous divine activity was so simple that if Ramana, while sitting in the couch, simply he used to pull one of his fingers, and one of the devotees among them who had a great pain in that finger, after Ramana does that, their pain would have got vanished, and they only realized this wonder, this miracle that had happened. But To the others, it would have been so natural. Ramana has simply pulled one of his fingers. Okay, so natural was his movements. Yet there was compassion in every movement. Such is the beauty of Ramana's compassion, which was so natural. It was not like some magical thing happening in the presence of Ramana, but only those who experienced that miracle, that karuna, would understand the greatness of Ramana's presence. Such was the natural compassion of Bhagavan Ramana. And Ramana says that compassion, which is our own true nature, that love, which is our own true nature, is truly our nature. And that true nature is full of happiness. It is Satchit Ananda. It is natural. When we had a discussion in one of our workshops regarding the what is natural and what is that which comes and goes, which is not natural. The natural is not created. It is ever present, ever available. But the happiness which comes from outside is very, very transient. It comes and goes, and it has to be created with the various situations. The thing is, the same thing which gave happiness at one moment may not give us happiness at the next moment. But the natural happiness that we are is ever present. It is not created. It is ever full, ever available. One needs to turn towards it to experience it and realize it. That happiness has embodied itself as Bhagavan Ramana and come into our lives as the Sadguru. And that Sadguru who has come into our lives is reminding us to get back to that Guru who is shining within every heart, whose very nature is Karuna. And Karuna is not a quality of that Guru who shines within every one of us. To that Ramana, we pay our obeisance and pray that we turn towards that Guru whose very nature is Karuna, compassion. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the sharing of Ramana Ashtottara, the Manana on the Ramana Ashtottara by Dr. Sarada.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining as a self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self, manifest as Ramana. In this part of the Satsang, we are meditating on the Ramana Ashtottara Shatanamavali by Vishwanatha Swami, and we have, by his grace, covered the boyhood days of Bhagavan depicted in the Namas, in the first part of the Namas of the Ashtottara. He is coming to Arunachala, he is being stationed there, and we have come to the point where he was in the mango orchard. Chutavatyam Samasinaya Namaha. That is, having been in the temple in various places, having been in the Gurumurtam itself, and after being in the Gurumurtam temple, Bhagavan had moved to the mango orchards adjacent to the Gurumurtam shrine. And from there, Bhagavan went to the Arunagirinathar temple for a few days. The Arunagirinathar temple being the temple of Arunachaleshwara, adjacent to the Ayyankulam tank. He went there, and after having gone there, he moved to a small hillock, Pavadakundru. Pavadakundru has a temple of Ardhanarishwara. It's a small hillock adjacent to the Arunachala hill, and it is called a coral hill, Pavadakundru. It is called that because of probably the red hill. Also, Arunachala himself is a red hill, Aruna Achala. And here this is Pavada, and that is coral hill because of the Ardhanarishwara Tattva, which is depicted over there. There's a sweet little temple with a Ardhanarishwara idol over there and an Ardhanarishwara Vigraha. Bhagavan when he was there in Pavarakundru, probably gave darshan outside the temple. Mother, it is said, Mother Alagamma, when she came there, first, when she found him there, 2 years after she had lost him, literally, with no news of his whereabouts, he was reclining on some rock, it is said. And she saw his back and recognized him. This is what some people say. But whatever it was, he could probably not recognize him very easily. His hair was matted. His body was covered with grime and dust. His nails were long and curved. He was apparently looking like an old man, because in Gurumurtam some people thought he was a very old man. His body had become emaciated also, almost skin and bones, because he was living on bhiksha, whatever people gave him. He was not concerned at all about the body. And that was the condition in which mother saw him. That was the condition in which earlier, in the mango tree orchard, his uncle Nelliyapayar had also seen him. Churnita Akhila Vibhramaya Namaha, says Vishwanatha Swami. All illusions were destroyed by him. He is one who destroys all illusions. The story of Mother Alagamma is the story of every devotee of Bhagavan. We all begin with the beautiful entry of Bhagavan into our lives, which is so ecstatic, which is so exciting, which is so beautiful, like Bhagavan being born to Mother Alagamma. At that one point comes where Bhagavan seems to disappear in some way or the other. This disappearance happens. In our inward search also this disappearance happens. We reach a tableau, we reach a plateau where we seem to be unable to go further. That excitement, that joy, that beauty, that exhilaration of having Bhagavan in one's life, which is there in the early part of sadhana, that melts away at some point of time. It's like youth and maybe middle age or old age. When the youth, there is so much of energy in everything that one does. Everything is they're bubbling with enthusiasm. There is romance. There is so much of wonderment. It is so new. Everything, everywhere we seem to feel the glory of Bhagavan. And after that, slowly, what happens? As one practices, as life progresses, maybe one's own life also goes toward the aging process happens in one's own life, and that enthusiasm seems to be disappearing somewhere. The sadhana sometimes becomes routine. It becomes dull. One does not have that joy, that wonderment in the sadhana which one has when one begins the sadhana. What is one to do? One is to turn back to the same Sadguru, the same source, the same Atma Swarupa to reveal itself. The dullness, if it comes into one's sadhana, one has to turn back to that same source. The same way, Alagamma, she was missing Bhagavan for 2 years, and then she found him. And when she found him, he was not the same person whom she had lost. He was in no way the same person whom she had lost. So she had, in a sense, found him. But in a sense, she discovered that she had lost him completely. She could never find that Venkatraman again. She could never go back to that. We cannot go back to anything in our lives. There is no going back to the past. We have to move forward. We have to understand the beauty of the present as it is. So this is one illusion which Bhagavan destroyed for Radhamma and destroys for all of us. There is no going back. Churnita Akhila Vibhramaya Namaha. In our practice, no matter how beautiful the earlier sadhana might have been, no matter what all we might have experienced and which we now seek and we may not get, at the moment, we have to accept that moment and move forward from there. So what does Aragamma think she can do now? Okay, she says, I will not get Venkatraman back. That's not a possibility. But what about my being in physical proximity with him? By taking care of him. So the illusion, she had an illusion that she could take care of him, that he was actually lost in Arunachala, that there was nobody to feed him, there was nobody to take care of his body, which is what a mother longs to do. That is her purpose, to take care of her children, to take care of her family. And she was unable to do that. That's what she wanted to do. And she begged of him to come back to her place, Madurai, where she was staying with her brother-in-law, Nelliyapayar. And she said Nelliyapayar had also made that proposal in a way. There is a temple nearby. You can come and stay there. We will take care of you. We will take care of your needs. That is what Nelliyapayar had told him. That is what Mother Aragamma also told him. You come, we will take care of your needs. And Bhagavan said, all this is an illusion. That anyone is taking care of anything, that anyone can take care of anything, is an absolute illusion. Why? Because the Supreme alone is the only doer. He is the only actor. Everything is happening because of the command of the Supreme alone. This is what Bhagavan wrote and gave to Mother. And in that one stroke, if we meditate on that answer, the reply which he gave to Mother Aragamma, and make it our own, then gradually all our illusions will also be destroyed. Our sense of doership will also be undermined. Is it possible for us to do anything? Not at all, says Bhagavan, because our prapta pragaram adarkanavan aangang irundu aattu vippan. The supreme doer, the great one, he remains where? In every place. If I am here, then here. If I am there, then there. If I am in Bangalore, then in Bangalore. If I am in Delhi, then in Delhi. If I am in Timbuktu, then in Timbuktu. Wherever one is, that is in that place, the Supreme is, and the Supreme unfolds one's life story. ஆங்காங்கிருந்து ஆட்டுவிப்பான் நடவாதது எம்முயற்சிக்கினும் நடவாது. That which is not to happen will not happen despite every effort. நடப்பது என் தடை செய்யினும் நில்லாது. That which has to happen cannot be stopped by any effort whatsoever. Therefore, the best course is to remain silent. This is the message which Bhagavan gave to Mother Aragamma. This is the reply. You cannot change the course of events. You cannot take me away from here. Therefore, go back and become a silent witness to all that is to happen. You remain in silence. You remain in silence. That is the only option available to us, Mother. There are no other options available. Do not let the mind go towards changing events, the necessity to change events, people. We keep on thinking this should have been like that should have been like this. If only this becomes like that, if only that becomes like this, if only A becomes like B, if only B becomes like A, if only A remains like A with a little bit of modification and becomes A plus or becomes A minus, a little change. We are constantly looking at people different from what they are. We see someone, we interact with someone, we want that someone to be someone else or something else, something different, one particular thing. That person is very sweet. But this particular aspect, if that person would only change, that particular aspect is a little disturbing in that person. So we are constantly wanting to change the world in one way or the other, or we want the world to either change or to remain unchanged. Wherever we are satisfied with it, wherever we are pleased with it, we do not want that part to change in any way. And in this manner, we keep on superimposing our own needs upon the world which we see. However, the plan for the world is in the hands of the Supreme One. The plan for the world is made by Him, executed by Him, and to imagine anything else is an illusion. The doership is an illusion. The fact that I can do something, the thought that I can do something is an illusion. And this is the illusion which Bhagavan has come to destroy. Why? Because He is Karanodbhava. He is Jagat Hitavatara. He has come for the highest, to bestow the highest good on the entire universe. To bestow the highest good on the entire universe. We heard when Nandakumarji was reading in that article, the writer says that even if a Martian were to come and listen to Bhagavan's teachings, the same teachings would apply to the Martian as well. So it is for the entire universe. The destruction of the ego is for the benefit of the, not just the individual, but of the entire universe. So it is Churnita Akhila Vibhramaya Namaha. That is His grace. It is in His graciousness that He destroys all illusions in order to leave the shining of the self alone, all enveloping self alone to be resplendent. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Aksharamanamalai. This will be followed by the Ashtottara puja to Bhagavan at Ramana Maharshi Heritage Buildings Meditation Hall by Ujwal Jagadeesh. The chanting of Ashtottara will be done by Vaibhavji, Prarthana and Uma. We will now have Aksharamanamalai. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Sombiyai summa suhamundurangidil solveren gati Arunachala. சௌரியம் காட்டினை ஷழக்கற்றதென்றே சலியாதிருந்தாய் அருணாச்சலா. யமலியிற்கேடா நான் என்னுறுதியால் நாடி நின்னுருவேன் அருணாச்சலா. ஞானமில்லாதுன் ஆசையாற்றளர் வர ஞானம் தெரித்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. நிமிரு பொனியும் மலர்ந்திலை என்றே நேர் நின்றன என் அருணாச்சலா. தத்துவம் தெரியாதத்தனையூற்றாய் தத்துவம் இதுவென் அருணாச்சலா. தானே தானே தத்துவம் இதனை தானே காட்டுவாய் அருணாச்சலா. திரும்பி அகந்தனை தினமாக கண் காண் தெரியுமென்றன என் அருணாச்சலா. தீரமில்லகத்தில் தேடி உந்தனையான் திரும்ப உற்றேன் அருள் அருணாச்சலா. துப்பறிவில்லாய் பிறப்பெண் பயன் ஒப்பிடவாயேன் அருணாச்சலா. தூய் மனமொழியர் தோயும் உண்மையகம் தோயவே அருளென் அருணாச்சலா. தெய்வமென்றுன்னை சாரவே என்னை சேர ஒழித்தாய் அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. I request Sri Radha, Srimati V. Radha and Vallabh Srinivasan to continue the next 12 sets of verses.
தேடாதுற்றன திருவருள் நிதியகத்தியக்கம் தீர்த்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. தைரியமோடும் உண்மையக நாடயங்க தெளிந்து நருள் அருணாச்சலா. தொட்டருட்கைமை கட்டிடாயெனிலிய நட்டமாவேனரு அருணாச்சலா. தோடமில்லியாக தோடொன்று என்று சந்தோடம் ஒன்றிட அருள் அருணாச்சலா. நகைக்கிடமில்லை நின் நாடிய எனையருள் நகையிட்டு பாணி அருணாச்சலா. நாடிலை நாடிட நானாயொன்றினி தானுவ நின்றனை அருணாச்சலா. மின்னெறி எரித்தென்னை நீராக்கிடுமுன் நின்னருள் மழை பொழி அருணாச்சலா. நீ நானர புலி நிதங்களி மயமா நின்றிட நிலையருள் அருணாச்சலா. நுண்ணுரு உன்னையான் விண்ணுரு நன்னிட எண்ணலையிருமென் அருணாச்சலா. மூலறிவறியா பேதையன் என்றன் மாலறிவருத்தருள் அருணாச்சலா. நெக்கு நெக்குருகியான் புக்கிட உன்னை புகனக்க நான் நின்றனை அருணாச்சலா. நேசமில் எனக்கு உன் ஆசையை காட்டி நீ மோசம் செய்யாத அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா. அருணாச்சலம் வாழி. அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி. நமோ ரமண.
Namo Ramana. We will now continue with the Ashtottara puja.
नमो रमण. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्री रमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावली अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिराशे यस्योर्विमात्रं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. ॐ महासेन महोंशेन जाताय नमः. ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः. ॐ गुरवे नमः. ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः. ॐ महौजसे नमः. ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः. ॐ जगद्धितावताराय नमः. ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः. ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः. ॐ सुन्दरार्यतपःफलाय नमः. ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः. ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः. ॐ शोणाचलमहोलीनमानसाय नमः. ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः. ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः. ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः. ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः. ॐ तीव्राय नमः. ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः. ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः. ॐ पितुरादेशतः शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः. ॐ तपोमयाय नमः. ॐ उदासीनाय नमः. ॐ महायोगिने नमः. ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः. ॐ कुशाग्रदिये नमः. ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसम्रम्भाय नमः. ॐ सुसन्द्रशे नमः. ॐ सवित्रे नमः. ॐ स्थिराय नमः. ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः. ॐ फुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः. ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः. ॐ च्यूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः. ॐ चूर्णिताखिलविभ्रमाय नमः. ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः. ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः. ॐ त्रिगुणातिगाय नमः. ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः. ॐ विराजदशलाकृतये नमः. ॐ उद्दीप्तनयनाय नमः. ॐ पूर्णाय नमः. ॐ रचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः. ॐ गम्भीराय नमः. ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः. ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः. ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः. ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः. ॐ धीराय नमः. ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः. ॐ स्वराजे नमः. ॐ महर्षये नमः. ॐ भगवते नमः. ॐ ईड्याय नमः.
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः. ॐ विमलाय नमः. ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः. ॐ आप्ताय नमः. ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः. ॐ समदृशे नमः. ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः. ॐ सत्याय नमः. ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः. ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः. ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः. ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः. ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः. ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः। ॐ श्री शोणाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः। ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः। ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः। ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः। ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्छिन्नसंशयाय नमः। ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः। ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः। ॐ सौम्याय नमः। ॐ आत्मवते नमः। ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः। ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः। ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः। ॐ महाभागाय नमः। ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः। ॐ विनताय नमः। ॐ विनुताय नमः। ॐ विप्राय नमः। ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः। ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः। ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः। ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः। ॐ हृच्चान्तिकरसान्निध्याय नमः। ॐ स्मरणात् बन्धमोचकाय नमः। ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः। ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः। ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः। ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः। ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः। ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः। ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः। ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः। ॐ गुहाय नमः। ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः। ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः। ॐ भवरोगविषग्वराय नमः। ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः। ॐ देवतमाय नमः। ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः। ॐ सेनान्ये नमः। ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः ऋन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिवप्रभावरण नमो महर्षि। नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुखमङ्गलमुख सकलजीवहितसम्मुख ब्रह्मसङ्घिये सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परममहर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि। नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।
Jai